Hello, welcome to this video on solving quadratic equations. Firstly, a quadratic equation is any equation which comes in a form such as this, where a, b and c are numerical values, and to solve it the right hand side must be 0. The first technique I'm going to show is factorisation. Factorisation is turning this equation into a form of the equation where you have something times x plus something, where these somethings are numerical values, times exactly the same. And then when you times these two together, you get this equation here again. So my example of this is going to be for the equation x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now, what I'm going to show you now will only work for having x squared, or when the a value is 1. So what you must do is find two numbers where c equals, for example, c is these two numbers times by each other, and b is these two numbers plus by each other. So for this equation, 2 times 3 is 6, but also 2 plus 3 is 5. So this equation would go to x plus 3 times x plus 2. And to check this, you can do it on the side and use the box method. Plus 3 gives you x squared, 2x, 3x and 6. Then that's x squared plus 5x plus 6. Back to our original answer again. So for values where a is 1, you can factorise simply by finding two numbers which times to make c and plus to make b. Now this is quite easy for examples in exams where they'll ask you to factorise. However, often in real life it's not quite as easy due to the fact that these are often more obscure numbers for b and c, and often a isn't 1. So in that case, you need to use the quadratic formula. Now the quadratic formula is I'll go back to factorisation for a second. To turn this into the answer of your equation, this must equal 0. So when this must equal 0, either x plus 3 equals 0, because the only way to get 0 is for one part of this to be 0. For one part of this equation to be 0. The only way to get 0 is something times 0. So either x plus 3 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. And both of these solved equal x equals minus 3 and x equals minus 2. So that's how you get from the factorised form to the answer of the equation. So as I was saying a minute ago, the other way to find a solution is to use something called the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x equals minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now this is quite a complex formula. It's not very easy to derive. However, that's the formula as it is, and you should be given it for your exam, hopefully, if you're being examined on this. So, an important thing to recognise from this equation is that you can't have a minus inside a square root. You can't. It doesn't work. It's mathematically impossible. So therefore, b squared minus 4ac. These letters, the a, b and c here, are referring back up to these letters here in the original equation. If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, then that whole bit here is 0, so you can only have one solution. There's only one solution to it. Unlike here, we had minus 3 and minus 2, there's only one solution. However, if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, then there is something called no real solution. There is no real solution to that. So if you've looked at it at factorising it, you can't work out how to factorise it. No number seems to work. If you put it into this part of the equation and it's less than 1, then there's no real solution. The only way to get a solution then is to use complex numbers, which are a lot more complex, and you'll probably only have to learn about later. So if this is more than 1, if b squared minus 4ac is more than 0, you have two solutions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an example by substituting the numbers in for the equation we tried up here into this to get the same answers. So that will be minus 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6. Now we'll try that b squared minus 4ac part. So that's going to be 5 squared, which is 25. So it's 25 minus 4 times 1 times 6, which equals 25 minus 24. So that's 1. So that's more than 0. Sorry, there we are. So this bit here, so that's b squared minus 4ac, going through it to show that that equals 1, which is more than 0. So there's two real solutions to this equation. So as I'll continue it here, divided by 2a, so divided by 2. So that equation, minus 5 plus or minus, now the square root of 1 is 1, so plus minus 1 over 2. So now what the plus or minus symbol means is that you effectively can create two equations from this, one where it's plus and one where it's minus. So if it's plus over here, minus 5 plus 1 over 2 equals minus 4 over 2 equals minus 2 equals x. And if over here, if we set it to minus, you have minus 5 minus 1 over 2 equals minus 3. So that's minus 6 over 2 equals x. So we get the same two answers here as we did up here by factorising it, which shows that this method also works. However, the quadratic method is much more versatile and can be used in any scenario as well where there is a real answer, because if this is less than 1, so less than 0, then there is not a real answer. So this can be used for any situation. However, obviously it requires more maths than if you can very quickly see how it factorises. So this is how you can solve any quadratic equation. I hope you found it useful. Actually, there's one more thing I was going to say about factorising. If you have an equation which, say, is ax squared plus bx, say it has no c value at all, equals 0. Now, obviously, you can't really factorise that. It doesn't work particularly well. Well, you can factorise, I'll show in a second, but the normal method kind of doesn't make much sense, and neither does using a formula, obviously, because you haven't got a c value. So what you can do is take out the x. So here we have an equation which we can solve very easily, because once again, to make it 0, one of these two things has to be 0. So either x equals 0 or ax plus b equals 0. So therefore x will be equal minus b over a in that scenario. So for situations where there's no c value, they can be very easily solved by just taking the x to one side, and therefore you get your two answers. There's no need to use factorisation or the formula. So I hope you found that video useful on how to be able to solve pretty much all quadratic equations using one of these methods. If you enjoyed the video, then please subscribe and have a nice day.